All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It was a bit of a rough last night on the Thursday Night Football. To help us break it all down is Arabia. Arabia, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing well, thank you. It's your first time on the show, so we'll spend just a second getting to know you a little bit. How did you come to love football so much?
I just love the game. I wish I had a more interesting story. A lot of people are like, "Oh, do you have a lot of brothers?" I actually have seven sisters and one brother, so it wasn't my dad also loves football. He like huge Redskins, Washington football, Commanders fan. My mom as well. So huge football family. I just love the game. Wish it was more exciting.
What is the hardest aspect of the game to get your hands on?
Um Probably the wide variety of fan opinions because I tend to interact with the same people a lot. I do want to get to know lots of the different fan base sectors. I mean, not everyone thinks alike. Not every Commanders fan is like, isn't we're not a monolith as a fan base. So I wish I did have a better pulse on the entire fan base, which kind of is hard to get if you're dealing with the same people.
Where do you think the Commanders fan base is right now after two straight? It's interesting, right? Because 7-4, it feels like before the season started, if you said we'd be 7-4, you'd get widespread applause. They've lost two games within the span of a week now. And if you're on the Bird app, things are falling apart quickly. What do you think it is?
Yeah, so I think it's us getting caught up in the seven
Yeah,
wins.
right.
Because before the season, I'm like, we've got to stay focused, measure success and not wins and losses because, we can't use our metric for success the same way that other teams do. How are we handling mid-season adjustments, which is something that I want to see from our coaching staff now? If we are playing good teams, are we being competitive? Are we setting our players up to be successful, not just with trying to avoid injuries and coaching, but just in general, like how are we operating as an organization? And so those things for me should be what we're measuring success with. But we are now getting caught up in the wins and losses of it all because we're doing well. Like you said, tell me in July we're going to be 7-4. I'm through the roof. I'm happy. But now, even since after the Steelers game, a lot of fans have been placing a lot of blame on players, placing a lot of blame on coaches, just saying, oh, we should have went another way in the draft. And so we're pretty split now with the way that people are placing blame and measuring how we're doing as a team.
The state of Pennsylvania taught us some valuable lessons over the course of 2 weeks. Probably the best defenses will play all year. What did you take away from those two games from the state of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so I would for sure agree with you. I think these Pennsylvania teams were some of the better defenses we've seen this season. With this Eagles team, I thought we had already seen the best defense that we were going to see, but they brought kind of a different aspect in that, yes, we saw Dexter Lawrence, but Jalen Carter was disruptive. Our left tackle, Brandon Coleman, who had been performing very, very well, kind of had a rookie game. He struggled in some moments, which I'll allow. He needed one of those games. I'm not mad at it. He'll be fine. But he certainly did struggle against Sweat. So I would say that, yes, we may have seen better overall defenses or individual players, but we still need some work to handle our own and get some of these better defenses. I'll also say that we talk about complementary football a lot and we kind of think about offense helping the defense and vice versa. But there's another aspect of complementary football with the D line helping the secondary. And I think Philly showed that a lot. Their defensive line helped their secondary in that Jayden was using his check down. But Jayden was using his check down a lot. He was definitely not getting the same deep ball threat that we saw earlier in the season because he just couldn't really get there. So, I think that we are still going to be fine. I'm not worried. No panic buttons, no alarm bells are ringing off for me. We just have to see where we can adjust, if we can adjust midseason and also moving forward.
It was a weird game last night. I went back and watched the condensed version earlier. We'll obviously watch the all 22 tomorrow on the film breakdown show on the channel. The game was winnable. I mean, you kick the field goal on fourth down there. I think that's one of the biggest complaints. John Bates gets a first down that nobody checks there in the fourth quarter. That you don't even have to go for the fourth down conversion there. It was It was an oddly coached game yesterday, particularly from Quinn to me. The offense was working. Cliff's going to take a beating, and he already has. When you go back and watch it, like the run game was working. There were a lot of things working. Mistakes by Quinn that I don't think he's made yet.
So I also, of course, have seen the same criticism where it's fourth down, 4th and 2, I believe,
Mhm.
and he decides to go for it. And on one hand, we at that point in the game were the best fourth down conversion team in the NFL. No one had done it better than us. We were 12 for 13 at that point. And also, that offensive drive had rhythm. So he's going based on the stats and he's going based on the momentum for that drive. And so he's trusting his guys like he usually does. And it just, the execution, whatever it was, just didn't pan out. And so because it doesn't work, now the criticism rolls in, right? Like kind of Dan Campbell, that happens with him too with the Lions. When he goes for it and it's successful, everyone's happy and everyone's praising him. But when it doesn't, it's like, all hell breaks loose. But definitely some questionable things there. Cliff Kingsbury also has gotten criticism, not just with the Commanders, but with USC and with the Cardinals, and his ability to play call in the second half of the season. It's almost as if other defensive coordinators kind of catch up to him and he doesn't know how to adjust all the time mid-season. So he's getting criticism, whether it's warranted or not. Definitely have to kind of look at coaching and see if there's anything that they can do on their end to help us pull through these tough games, because we can't just, do well against bad teams. We also have to know how to seal the deal when it's against a really good team.
That's right. Jayden Daniels, after the game, they made a big deal about his performance not being injury related. They can say that all they want to. I'm telling you, when I went back and watched the game, like usually decide, and I'm not even talking about from the passing aspect, but usually on his runs, very decisive on where he's going. Last night, I'm not sure he trusted his legs to get him moving. Very indecisive when he went for runs. They can say all they want to. I don't think he's quite right.
I completely agree. Not just with the run, but with the pass as well. So many underthrown balls, not just him checking it down, but he's throwing short to a guy and throwing to his legs. It's like the first half of the season pre-Panthers game, Jayden Daniels with the run and with the pass looks way different. I think he's still hurt. And at that point, no excuses, but why are we playing him hurt? I'd much rather lose with a healthy Marcus Mariota than lose with forcing our rookie to play hurt, because now we're either using it as an excuse or we're trying to mask it the same way RG3 came out and was like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good to play. Everything is okay. But really, it's like we're seeing different. So I hope that this 10-day break that they have until the next game will allow him to rest and recover a lot more, and that they aren't forcing him to go out there and play hurt, because that doesn't do anything for him and certainly not for our team.
And when he's right and his legs are a factor, it makes the running game go as well. He didn't get helped out very much yesterday. A lot of drops. The Austin Eckler had two big ones that I can recall right off the top of my head. Noah Brown with a couple of catches where, yeah, not perfectly thrown balls, but in the NFL, those are catches. It was tough even on the rewatch to figure out who who and where the blame lies, whether it was the play calling, whether it was the quarterback, or it was the complementary pieces. It felt like in its totality yesterday, we saw an Eagles team that just had more talent.
Yeah, I agree. And you could even see it in our receiver room where our leading receiver was Austin Eckler, was our running back. He
Yeah.
had 8 carries for 89 yards. After that, it was our two tight ends. It was Zach Ertz and then it was Bates. After that, then we get to the receivers with Terry McLaurin with 1 reception for 10 yards. And again, just like you said, not exactly sure where to place the blame, if it's play calling, if it's player execution, if it's just credit to that Eagles defense for locking people up. I mean, you just really don't know where to put it, and so that can certainly be frustrating. But I didn't think that he played great, but I don't think it's all on him.
No, and you mentioned earlier too, Brandon Coleman. As much as they've been waiting for Daniels to have like one of those rookie games, and maybe that was his rookie game last night. I don't know. Again, it didn't look that bad, but it certainly was a rookie game for Brandon Coleman, who struggled against a Philly pass rush that, in fairness, a lot of offensive lines will struggle against. You talk about Sweat, Nolan Smith, Jaden, Carter. Um, he had a rough game.
Yes, he did. He did have a rough game. And looking at how he played against Trey Hendrickson, who is one of the better, more productive pass rushers in the league in that Bengals game early on in the season, granted, it's like, wow, not only did Adam Peters get a quarterback in the draft, he also got his left tackle in the draft. And that duo together in one draft certainly accelerates your plan for growth for an organization. And like I said, I'm not worried of Brandon Coleman. I don't think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I do think he had that kind of welcome to the NFL moment where he's going up against a defense that just kind of overwhelmed him. And we saw that, and it kind of is what it is. He's just going to have to flesh it and try to get better for next week.
Ertz has been better than I expected him to be. And yet, I think people are itching to see more Ben Sinnott. He's stuck at like third on the depth chart now because John Bates is the best blocking tight end that they have. And in the scheme they're running, it's vital to have him. Where are you on Sinnott's usage?
I've seen the same thing. I made a tight end reel with Ertz, Bates, and
Okay.
Sinnott, and everyone's just really excited to get Sinnott involved with catching the pass. So with the way that we have been establishing our ground game, certainly as much help as that O-line can get with those tight end sets, I'm sure they can appreciate Bates being out there for that because he has created a lot of opportunity for B-Rob and for Eckler and even Jeremy McNichols for the run with those kind of tray blocks, or even if he gets involved at all with blocking, working with the O-line. But I feel good about him being where he is for now. It's still early. He's still learning the ropes. I'm not going to push him out there, but I would like to see them open the playbook up a little bit, get more people involved, see if he can get in there when we're struggling, and just see what he has. Open him up a little bit.
What will be one of your biggest takeaways from the game yesterday? Again, they can say all they want to about the numbers being skewed, but that was a game they were in up until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. What will be your biggest takeaway from yesterday?
I would really like to get our receivers involved. We have talent on our team. Terry McLaurin didn't have any targets in the first half. He ended up with one reception. And even if we're looking at a wide receiver 2 to open our wide receiver 1 up, it would be nice to make sure that the talent that we currently have on our team is available in games. Otherwise, we're just going to keep taking Terry away, and then our pass game is looking a little lackluster. My biggest takeaway is coaching, and then Adam Peters has got to work his magic. I know they want to build through the draft. He wants to build this organization through the draft, and certainly I'm sure he'll look at some options through the offseason next year. But I would like to see Jayden Daniels be able to go to more options if Terry McLaurin isn't available.
As we switch over to the defensive side, it looks like that was another thing. They won't face many lines better than the Eagles. But again, I don't know whether it's the top end talent. It feels like the depth is fine. So maybe it's the top end talent, but they struggled a little bit against that offensive line. And it feels like it's the first time they've struggled that way. I mean, even the Panthers had a top 5 offensive line when they faced them. Curious your thoughts on the D line and where it sits. Interesting before you answer to Joe Witt Jr. had mentioned about Luvu in the Micah Parsons role, and everybody went kind of crazy. And he said, listen, I'm not saying that he's Micah Parsons. We'd like to get him in that role. He's been in that role and been very effective.
Very effective. Frankie Louvu not only is one of the leaders in the locker room and certainly gives these guys a lot of energy. You see his pregame energy that he gives the guys, but on the field, he is a huge difference maker. He shows up not just with the motor that he has with the guys and how he compliments Bobby Wagner in that linebacker room, but also in his production on the stat sheet. So I really, really like him. But as far as our defensive line, of course, I would like to see our interior be a little bit more effective. I would like to see us get a premier edge rush so we can actually get home when we get those pressures and just get to the quarterback. I think we ended up getting 2 or 3 sacks yesterday. But, I would like some improvement in that D-line, which will, of course, complementary football, help our secondary out, which is one of the weaker parts of our room in general on our team. So definitely hoping that we address the D-line, especially those edges in the offseason or through the draft.
I think most of the fan base would agree that the cornerback room probably is the weakest room. People are upset, as I know about Marshawn Lattimore and what the plan is. I think what we've seen now is that when Adam Peters says, I plan on playing for now, but not wasting our future. Marshawn Lattimore was more than a playoff push signing. He's got 2 more years under contract after this year. When he comes back, and we'll be hoping that it's this Sunday or next Sunday, what do you think the lineup will be as far as who is his counterpart? That's the big topic of conversation right now is who will be his counterpart. Interesting that Mike Davis got some run this week.
I think so. Of course, another villain is BSJ. Benjamin St. Juice has just been
Yes.
just completely run through the mud over the last few weeks. Poor guy. But I think he certainly, obviously, will still be involved. I don't think they're going to bench him. Maybe having Mikey there. Mike Sanders still had some really good passes defended
Mhm.
yesterday. He did really, really great. He's a short guy, but he still does follow the ball very well. He does really, really good. So I think between BSJ, Marshawn Lattimore, and Mikey, that might be kind of who we're the main guys that we're working with. And I feel okay about that. Again, I don't know what we're gonna look like next year. I don't know if those same guys are still gonna be here next year. But for now, that's kind of what I'm looking at as far as our main guys.
I think that the group that doesn't get talked about nearly enough is the safety room. I was a big fan of Quan Martin coming out. Was also a big fan of Jeremy Chin coming out. I don't know what happened down in Carolina, but he's been fantastic here. And since about week 3, he is on one of those heaters that you get excited about.
Yes, I love Jeremy Chin. He has made such a big difference for me. And then Quan Martin also had a big play yesterday. We didn't end up recovering the ball, but he
Yeah,
did punch the ball out, and
punch.
his just his awareness there was really, really great. So I also really like our safety room. Once we can start taking those moments like punching the ball and then having one of our guys recover it, kind of those moments that are just right there for you that can really swing the momentum in a game, then we'll start to see how big of a difference they're really making. But I also really like our safety room. That Jeremy Chin acquisition was fantastic.
They need to get him an extension pronto.
Now, 5 minutes ago.
Now.
Yeah.
That's right. They signed Luvu to a 3-year deal, if I remember correctly. They've got Bobby Wagner under contract for 1 more year. He's not the same Bobby Wagner that he was when he was an All-Pro, but he's obviously still very important to what they're doing, if nothing more than his experience. Would you be interested if he's interested in re-signing him to match Luvu's contract?
Absolutely. I think the same way that kind of the same way that B Rob and Eckler complement each other because they're totally different. I
Mhm.
think that Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu are also different, but they complement each other very well. Again, not just on the field, but in their temperament in that room. So yeah, if he's interested, I'm also interested. I would like to keep him on our team. I think he's been doing a fair job.
I agree. Where does this team rank in the NFC right now, do you think?
Ooh, so we have the line. I actually have an NFL playoff picture right in front of
Yeah, I
me.
was gonna say, let me pull up
So
the
right now in
NFC
the
list.
NFC, we have the Lions, of course, sitting at number 1, and then the Eagles. So now this is kind of where things get muddled. Now we got the Falcons, the Cardinals, and the Vikings. I would put us around Falcons territory. I'm not putting us up there with the Lions. I'm not. We can compete with the Eagles. Clearly, we can obviously compete with
Yes.
the Eagles. I mean, we literally just did. We were just a few
Yeah.
things away from winning that game. And with the Falcons, we just have to see how they come out. We play them in just a few weeks,
Mhm.
sometime in December, close to Christmas area. So I'm putting us, I'll say, 3-ish area.
So Eagles, I think, are equal. You're right. If that was a home game, I would have picked the Commanders yesterday. I picked the Eagles. I think we're better than the Cardinals. We'll see what the 49ers are doing. The Rams are on a heater. I think the Lions are better than us. The Vikings may. That NFC North division is brutal, by the
It's
way.
insane. Being at the bottom of the NFC North will get you at the top of most other divisions.
That's right. Uh, were you the Bears debacle? I know you follow the whole league, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about all the things. I still don't understand how the head coach came back last year. You would think, I mean, generally, when you're picking 1 overall, and I understand it's not their pick, it was Carolina's pick, but still, their pick was like 6. Usually, you start all over fresh. Were you surprised they didn't hit the reset?
I was very surprised. I was very surprised that they hit the reset on the quarterback, before they hit the reset, their
Right.
young quarterback before they hit the reset on the coach. And then once they did draft their quarterback, they just ended up surrounding him with all of the things that they made it probably should have done that for with Justin Fields. It's like if you just provided him with the scaffolding that you did with Caleb, maybe who knows? I mean, I don't know. Good, but so yes, I was very surprised about that.
Yeah, it's brutal because I mean the Packers and the Viking in that division. The Justin Fields thing, I don't know about that. He didn't catch on with the Steelers either. They were dying for Russell Wilson to get healthy. The Falcons, I like them. I think they're going to be tough. The Rams, if they get going, they might be a lot of trouble. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the defense was interesting when we played them because they have so much experience playing an offense like we want to do. I mean, they play the Ravens twice a year, right? And you talk about another division that's brutal. Is that one? How? Where do the Ravens rank? If we're ranking the NFL as a whole, Chiefs, Bills, Lions, Ravens.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is because Ravens running back room, I believe, better than the Eagles. Ravens quarterback, especially this year with the way that Lamar Jackson has been throwing more and more accurately, better than Jalen Hurts. That defense, I'm not sure how that defense will stack up against the Eagles, but I'm doing Chiefs, Lions, Bills, Lions, and then I'll go Ravens for sure.
And then where do the Eagles fit in after that? They're next after that?
I can't wait for their game against the Steelers. I don't know if I put the Eagles next or if I put the Steelers next.
The Steelers are the easiest team to forget about in the history of the NFL. All they do is win football games, and I swear that's a 3-win football team. And Mike probably just doesn't know how to operate a 3-win football team, so I always forget that. But you're right. I mean, I probably on a neutral field, I would take the Steelers over the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, same.
Especially with Russ. I mean, let him cook, as they say. But the last couple of weeks, dude's been cooking. I mean, that's kind of a throwback Russ that we're seeing there.
He's been doing really well. And then if you talk about coaching between those two teams, I'm taking Tomlin and crew before I am Sirianni and crew. And if you are in a situation in a game it's getting sticky, I would for sure take Tomlin to lead that team to a win. So yeah.
You think the Chiefs will go undefeated the rest of the season?
No, I don't. I don't see the perfect season to a Super Bowl victory. No, someone's going to get him, I think.
The way they operate football is amazing to me in Kansas City. They have gone from a high-flying Tyreek offense to a still high-scoring Travis Kelce offense. This year, it's like a 1985 football team. They could care less if they score 17 points, 3 points, or 40 points as long as they're winning football games. The way they continue to remold who it is that they are is fascinating.
This is what makes organizations great. Your ability to adjust. Tyreek Hill leaves, what do you do? Your player after player after player gets injured. How do you adjust? In game, how do you adjust? I mean, they're just so good at identifying their weaknesses and then attacking them. They go out to get D-Hop. They brought Hunt back when Pacheco was injured. So it's really amazing to see the way that this front office has been operating in this organization and the way that coaching has been operating too. And then, of course, players have to execute. But you're right. They're not dominating the league because they're blowing opponents out week by week, winning by 40. They're dominating the league because they just find subtle ways to win and attacking their weaknesses, both in the offseason and then in season. It's really, really hard to do. I think people underestimate how difficult it is for organizations to pivot mid-season, and they do it really, really well.
They're going to have to figure out something with the rules. Maybe it's the Patrick Mahomes rule, but nothing frustrates me more. So I have to imagine it can't attract the defense anymore. Is that he'll run to the sideline. You know you can't hit him late, and then he'll pick up an extra 15 or 20 yards because he knows you can't hit him late, and they don't want to hit him late. Yeah. Something's got to be done about that, Arabia, because I don't find it pleasant to watch.
I completely agree. I think once the quarterback becomes a runner, once he scrambles out of that pocket and now he's categorized as a runner, don't try to kill him, but you can reasonably tackle him. No
Please.
delayed hits if he's already outside the lines, and none of that foolishness. But all these flags and calls with roughing the passer when now he's a runner, I absolutely agree. Because now you're scared to touch him. He's picked up 6 extra yards. I completely agree. And even, kind of there was some controversy with the hip drop tackle ban in the offseason and defensive players being like, look, what can we do? We can't touch the quarterback. We can't do this. We can't do that. And so now you're restricting them and allowing the offense to gain more yardage. And I agree. Very, very frustrating.
Two of the biggest offseason signings to me were Saquon and Derrick Henry. I never understood how people were poo-pooing this notion that those guys weren't going to be fantastic football players on their new teams. And the new teams are loving having them. It feels like the league got enamored with this idea that we don't need running backs, so we won't sign a running back. Two teams that love to run the football went out and signed running backs. And imagine that. They're the 2 best rushers in the league.
Yeah, I never understood that devaluation of the running back. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one thing for contracts, sure, the market is whatever, but just even the value that our running back brings your team, whether it's a rookie quarterback, you need to relieve the pass a little bit, or whatever it is, I completely agree. But I think a lot of the criticism for the Saquon move initially, thinking that he might not be really good, is people not understanding that even if he stayed with the Giants, he would not have the season that he is having now. The problem was not Saquon, just the absolute value of Saquon. The problem was that now he's behind a much better O-line. They're putting him in positions to do a lot better. And people thought that you would just pick up Saquon and drop him in Philly and he would have the exact same year. And of course, that's not the case. He has totally different things around him. And I'm happy for him. And same with Derrick Henry. They have the best rushing offense in the league. I love the fact that running backs are kind of getting their shine right now.
I'm a huge Georgia fan. So Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, was there when they were winning championships. And I just knew when he got to the league that it was going to be fantastic. I didn't realize that he'd end up going to the Ravens, and that's a perfect match for what they're doing up there. He's unleashed Lamar on a level we have not seen yet. I didn't even realize Lamar maybe had another level to get to. He's easily going to win another MVP, don't you think?
He's on the trajectory for sure. If you look at what he's doing, again, not just with what Lamar does and his legs, but he's also paying so much more attention to his passing. I think he hears the noise, and I think he is bothered by people being like, he's just a running back who happens to be able to throw. He got leaner in the offseason. He came back a lot smaller. I think people anticipated his play being a little bit different. But I'm super impressed. I'm happy for them. Todd Monken had me a little bit worried in that AFC Championship game last year when he just kind of abandoned their Ravens identity. But certainly now I think they're back on track. So good for them.
Let's get back to the Commanders for a couple minutes before we get out of here. They play the Cowboys, the Titans, the Saints, Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. They're 7-4 now. What's realistic to get to at the end of the season?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked that because I've been thinking the same thing.
4.
I think we sweep the Cowboys. They're not good at all. So that's 9 right there.
Yep.
Titans and Saints, I'm counting that too. That's 11.
Mm-hmm.
So now all that we have to worry about is the Eagles and the Falcons. I think those could kind of go either way. Those are the 2 on the schedule for me that I wouldn't be surprised if they went either way. Do I want the Eagles to sweep us? Of course not. I would love an Eagles split, especially in DC. And same with the Falcons. They play us at home, which is a huge advantage, should be. But I'm just not sure what we're going to do against the Falcons. They're also on a roll, kind of a weird team. Kirk Cousins is coming back to Washington. So I'll for sure say that we've got 2 more wins with the Cowboys. Titans and Saints should also be wins. But it's that Eagles and those 2 games, Eagle Falcons, that I'm not sure about.
11 or 12 wins would just be incredible.
It would be incredible, but it would put us in another spot where our fan base is going to just kind of lose sight. I think I would love it, but we still would have to be like, all right, we're still building. We're still getting there. And let's say we do go to the playoffs, and let's say we get out round 1. I don't want to hear from our fan base. I don't want to hear anything from our fan base.
That's right.
We should criticize for sure. Like, we should reasonably call out things that we see. I think that's responsible. We have to responsibly criticize things that we see. But as far as a failure of a season, if we win in the first round of a playoff game, then no way.
Arabia, thank you. This was great today. I am a big fan of yours and your content, so keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of yours. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Hope I can come on again.
Absolutely. We'd love to do it again.
Thank you.